Okay, today I'm gonna talk about useRef and useImperativeHandle. This is gonna be the last class of this React tutorial. So, come to this. So, first is what is useRef? So useRef is a way to create ref in function component. Right. So ref, I think this is pretty common. So we have already talked about ref before in the class component, especially. There are three ways to create a ref: string ref, callback ref, and create a ref. Right. So use ref is the way you create a ref in function component. So same as ref in the class component, you can do store element node, and you can do focus. So this is fairly simple. We can just come to the source code folder and do components, and the first one we call it ref node. Okay. So come to this, sorry, React function, it's called ref node, ref use ref basic usage import ref node. Yeah, use ref basic usage, right? So the first use is to store element node. So we just give it input, is called input element, okay? And if we want to get this, we will create an input ref use ref. I put ref here. We give it a button because this is an uncontrolled component, right? So we have already talked about this before as well. So modify input field. So now we have already stored this input field into input ref, right? So what we can do here, obviously input ref, just similar to a class component, and this node is stored in the current property. So we have a value, and when we click the button, we want to do click button clicked. Okay. Click this button clicked, right? So we also can do focus. Okay, then I click this button. As you can see here, the value has been, this node or this DOM has been modified. We give it a value called button clicked, and then we focus this input field. So yeah, of course we can get the data from this, right? So get data from get data. So we can do alert input ref.current.value. Okay. So right here I'm gonna give it a break, right? Okay, suppose I input something here. It says hello world, and I click this get data from input field, hello world, right? So exactly same thing as create a ref in class component, right? Store class component instance. So besides this, this ref is able to store a component instance, not only in element node, right? So now we can give it a React function class, React function component, which name is child. Delete this, and cast child equal to child component, right? So we put a child component here. So now we'll give it a component ref. Alright. So we pass the ref here, component ref. It's called get instance. We cannot print the instance in the alert in the pop-up, so we need to print it here. So component ref.current. I have button here is called get instance. Get instance of child component. Okay. As you can see here, so there is an error here that says function components cannot be given refs. Why? Because function component has no instance at all, right? So if you click this, it will give you an error, or it give you an undefined, right? So nothing has been stored in the ref. So what we want to do, we don't want this. Sorry. Instead, we need a React class. It's called child component, child class component. Right. Let's try it again. I click this button on the bottom again, get instance of child component. As you can see here, so a child component has been printed in the console. So context, props, refs, and everything. So it is pretty straightforward, right? So another thing is useRef is used to store special values which could cross life cycle. So what does this mean? Again, I'm gonna create a cross. In the component cross, I have a React functions called cross. Alright, so cross life cycle component. So instead we need cross cross left circle component, right? So what does this mean? Suppose I have a count value here. Use state count value is 0, and so count value count value 0, right? So suppose I have a requirement that we want to print last count value or previous count value and the current count value at the same time. So this is our feature, right? So we want to implement it. So how could we do that? Because the value that you stored in the ref will never change. So you can just implement this function based on this specification. You count add 1. Count add 1. Count add 1. So suppose I have a so right here we want to store this count value to a ref. So use ref count ref equal to use ref count. So let's display it. Let's just display it first. See what is here. Right, they're both 0. So count add 1. I'm gonna set count add 1. Again, we're back to this page and we click this button. Set count add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As you can see here, so this is the value we stored in the ref, right? So the previous value will never change because we didn't modify them. Once you store the value into this ref, it will never change, right? So how do we display the previous value after the page rendered? So we can do use effect, depends on count, display previous count value. So once the page refresh, once we reset count again, the page will re-render automatically, right? And we gotta store the new value into the count. We click this again, 1. And previous count value is 0. The previous count value is 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4. So how it works? So the execution order is pretty much like this. So first it is 0, right? So we click this button. We click this button. So the count value becomes 1 from 0 to 1, right? From 0 to 1, but we store the new value into the count ref, which is 1. But you stored it here, it doesn't really refresh the page, it won't re-render, right? Because this is use ref, this is not use state, right? This is not set count. You cannot re-render that automatically once you assign another value to this count ref. So then you click this button again. It will just display the value number 1 here. But now the count value has become 2. So the count is 2 here. And you store the value 2 right here. So this is how it works. This is a rarely used, this use case, this function is rarely used actually. You won't meet many scenarios that in the real life project. So sometimes when you want to store a timer or something, maybe you use it, or for example, we want to do something in CSS, right? So you want to store the previous value of scroll bar position. Probably you will use it, right? So when you want to scroll the news list or some news feed, something like that, and probably you will use it. But honestly, this is a rarely used case, right? A rare use case. So another thing is use imperative handle. So before we explain what is use imperative handle, we need to review a little bit about forward ref. So actually in this tutorial I haven't talked about a forward ref yet, because it is not very popular either. So but anyway, this is a very simple function here, so I'm gonna show you in a small example. So it's called forward, right? Attach index. It should be 3 imperative handle. Right, just make more things. Right? So suppose I have a function which is imperative handle, component, right? So back to this. Number 3, and we're gonna use it here. Okay, imperative handle component, right? So how do we use forward ref? So parent class is used when parent component want to control components, control elements in the child component. Right? So okay, again we need to give it a child, right? Child component. Okay, so right here we just replace this method with forward ref. Yeah, we just use it directly, and we put a child here. As you can see here, it works, right? So now you know that forward ref is another is a higher order component. Is a higher order used. Okay. So this is a higher order component, which means that it will accept a component as a parameter, and we will return a component eventually. Right? When you wrap this child component with forward ref, then you can pass a ref from parent component to child component. So suppose there is a child ref, use ref. Oh, sorry. Okay. So now we just pass it here, ref child ref. Then how do we control that? Suppose there is input field child input field. Okay. Then when you wrap this component with forward ref, then you other than the props is the parameter you can accept automatically. You can also accept a ref parameter. Then you can use your ref here. Yeah. So now I have a button from parent component. It called like focus. Click this to focus input field in the child component. Right. So child ref current focus. Okay. So okay, I'll give you a border so that you can tell the difference, right? So suppose there is a style border double. Okay, so this part is child component, including this input field, right? So I click this button from parent component and let's see, focused. It is focused, right? It is focused. I can also do value fickle. Yep. Let's click this button, fickle. Right. So this one forward ref is used to it is used when you want to control the some element in the child component when you are from parent component, right? So what is use imperative handle limit the control of parent component. So what does this mean? Now you want to do focus, you do focus. You wanna set up the value, you set up the value, right? So this is not quite right. This is not secure enough. So React give us a function that we can limit what parent component can do upon the child component. Limit what parent component can do upon child component. Right? So how do we use that? We have a use imperative And this is a callback function which will accept two parameters. The first one is the ref, and second one is a callback function. And this function, it will return an object. I don't want a red to return, so I just use a bracket to wrap the curly bracket. So it will return yeah, this is an object. So right here we can define what you want to do. So when parent component says focus, it will trigger child component. Okay. Okay, let's try it. Imperative handle, sorry. Okay, if you want to use it, yep, we can do child current focus. Let's do triggered, right? As you can see here, so trigger component function. So now if you want to do a current value, can you do that? Can you do that? Can you do that? No, right? So you can only do things which you have declared here, right? This is the ref you passed from parent component. This is the actions you can do upon the parent component pass the ref, and you put your ref here, right? So this is still not good enough, and what we can do, we can const input ref use ref. So right here, we can do input so right here we just assign this to to ImperativeRef, and instead this is the ref. Instead, if we want to do something, we'll need to do it like this: current dot value dot focus. Okay, if I click this, as you can see, focus, right? This might be a little bit tricky because there are many ref variable or ref parameters, right? So how it works, this one is what you passed accept from parent component. This is the one you want to do upon the parent component, and this is what actually you do upon based on the child component, which is this input field right here. And to use that, you need to create your own ref in the child component. Yeah, this is the way how we use that. Right, this is the way how we use that. As you can see here, still we have a we set the current value here, but it doesn't work because you didn't specify the action here. Right? So this is how we use imperative handle in child component. right? Just to make it safer, make it safer, and even though it will requires more coding, but the logic here is just to make it more structural and safer. So from some perspective, it is essential. Yeah. So yeah, this is pretty much about the use ref and the use imperative handle, and this is all about React. This is pretty much of the our tutorial about React, and in the future I'm gonna update some React based uh, project, and or probably I would do Node Express tutorial as well. It depends. Right? I'm still thinking about it. So yeah, this is pretty much about the use ref and use imperative handle today. Thank you.